The ancient mystical dance called kuda kepang has been practiced by Javan migrants in Malaysia since the 1960s, but is partially banned and disparaged in the Muslim-majority nation. The art originated from the Indonesian island of Java, spreading with the migration of Javanese communities across Southeast Asia. This dance comes from the performance of Riog Ponorogo from Ponorogo. This art continues to be developed and preserved by the Javanese not only in the islands, but also spread by the Ponorogo emigrants to the Malay Peninsula, and is now practiced in Singapore and Malaysia, especially in the state of Johor. The dance has been banned in the southeast Malaysian state of Johor since 2009, but a dozen remaining dance troupes are waging an uphill battle to keep kuda kepang, which means woven horse, alive as part of their cultural heritage.
Kuda kepang ni ada memberi kesan dalam hidup saya sebab saya ada berketurunan berdarah Jawa. Jadi sedikit sebanyak dapat belajar jugalah daripada asal-usul budaya saya. Dan saya bangga dapat belajar seni kuda kepang ni walaupun ada kekangan, tapi kita cuba untuk kekalkan tradisinya lagi. Saya dah main kuda kepang ni dari sekolah menengah lagi, memang dah lama lah. Dulu macam saja je nak layan kawan-kawan kan, tengok member pergi training kan, ikutlah sekali, saja je. Lepas tu sampai sekarang pun masih lagi aktif jugalah.
Mengganggu tidaklah, sebab apa, bila kita buat macam ini, dia pun ada guna ayat-ayat suci Quran juga. So bila kita mengawal diri kita, ada yang pakai suci-suci Al-Quran juga. So tak ada istilah mengganggu agama.
Malaysian dancers keep forbidden horse trance art alive. On a moonless night in the southern Malaysian state of Johor, Javanese diaspora dancers dressed in black outfits mount horses woven out of bamboo and prance around to percussion sounds. Sweat-drenched performers enter a spiritual trance as the drum beats get louder. Kuda kepang is usually performed in the open or on a large stage. Before the dance begins, the dance leader will burn incense and recite a spell to give energy to the horses. He used raw eggs, flowers, grass, and water for offerings. Some run in circles, shaking the man-made horses violently. Others scream, grunt and squat, rolling on the sandy ground and inhaling incense.
Tidak ada minat di kalangan anak-anak muda. Saya rasa itu penyebab kesenian ini boleh lenyap macam itulah.
The emulation of these steeds is said to bring healing and spiritual power. The dance went into the early hours, the darkness illuminated only by several street lights.
Pakistan's high rate of marriages for underage girls had been inching lower in recent years, but after unprecedented floods in 2022, rights workers warn such weddings are now on the rise due to climate-driven economic insecurity. The summer monsoon between July and September is vital for the livelihoods of millions of farmers and food security, but scientists say climate change is making them heavier and longer, raising the risk of landslides, floods and long-term crop damage. Many villages in the agricultural belt of Sindh have not recovered from the 2022 floods, which plunged a third of the country underwater, displaced millions and ruined harvests. Scientists say climate change is making these rains heavier and longer, increasing the risk of landslides, floods, and long-term crop damage.
बोला कडाई लख कर्जा मुझे मुझसे गरीब आना माँ दस न पी दस गरीब बताने सा किथा लगी.
They gave 200,000 Pakistan rupees, $720, to the young bride's parents, a major sum in a region where most families survive on around $1 a day.
बोल थी तो असां शादी करे दियूं हल्को बार थे ले आगे वडा हुंदा न पो शादी कंदा न नंढे हुंदे शादी करे ॾिनी सी शादी करे त वरी सागी गुरबत अचे वई वरी सागी गुरबत अचे वई बोड थी ऐं उन में घर बर टही विया हाणे काशे कोने का हाणे
Child marriages are common in parts of Pakistan, which has the 6th highest number of girls married before the age of 18 in the world, according to government data published in December. The legal age for marriage varies from 16 to 18 in different regions, but the law is rarely enforced. UNICEF has reported significant strides in reducing child marriage, but evidence shows that extreme weather events put girls at risk.
तो उसमें क्लाइमेट चेंज के असरात या फ्लड के बाद जो फिगर हैं वो एक साल में जो है ना 45 शादियां हुई हैं एक गांव में सिर्फ। वो 250 घरानों पे मुश्तमिल गांव है और उनकी जो हालत ये है कि पिछले 3 महीनों में 15 शादियां हो गई हैं।
In Khan Muhammad Malla village, where Shamila and Amina were married in a joint ceremony in June, 45 underage girls have become wives since the last monsoon, 15 of them in May and June this year. As monsoon rains were about to break over Pakistan, 14-year-old Shamila and her 13-year-old sister Amina were married off in exchange for money, a decision their parents made to help the family survive the threat of floods. Dildar had planned to marry off his eldest daughter Mehtab while living in an aid camp after being displaced by the floods.
अधिपेरियां असां मोटिया से जंहिंमहिल मां माई सां सलाह दलाह कई मां चयो भला हाणे छोकिरी छोकिरी जूं कयूं ग़रीबत बि वधी वई आहे बेरोज़गारी बि आहे भला होॾे वञी सुखी दुखी थींदी पंहिंजे घरनि में हेॾे भला ॾींदासीं वञी खाईंदी पींदी सुखियो।
Mehtab was just 10 years old. An intervention from the NGO Shujag Sansar led to the wedding being postponed, and Mehtab was enrolled in a sewing workshop, allowing her to earn a small income while continuing her education.
मां इहो न पई चाहियां त मां पंहिंजी शादी कयां ऐं जेके हाणे हींअर जेके शादियूं थियूं कनि उहे ॾाढी ॾुखियूं आहिनि ऐं मां चाहियां पई त पंहिंजी माना ज़िंदगी हाली ईअं ई गुज़ारियां पोइ इन ॻाल्हि खे पोइ ई ॾिसंदासीं। मां चयो त हाली मां शादी न कंदसि।
Silk has played a pivotal role in Vietnam's industry. The process involves meticulous work, from mulberry cultivation and silkworm rearing to spinning, dyeing, and weaving the silk. Silk is believed to have originated in China 3,000 years ago. Legend has it that a Chinese empress discovered silk when she stumbled upon silkworms in a mulberry tree. She then ingeniously created fabric out of the cocoons made by these silkworms, giving birth to silk. Today, modern society offers a wide variety of silk products, but traditional silk villages in Vietnam still hold the soul of this fabric. When seeking tranquility and ancient traditions, visit the famous silk villages in Vietnam, where the beauty of Vietnamese silk can be seen. With a rich history deeply rooted in Vietnamese culture, the production of Vietnamese silk has been a traditional craft passed down through generations.
Giống tầm cánh tầm này thì nó lại phụ thuộc tới 90% do thời tiết rồi. Nếu mà thời tiết mà nắng mà tầm nó vừa chín trời nắng vẫn là đẹp, nhưng mà tầm đẹp mà chín trời mưa nào hỏng là chất lượng thấp, cho nên là khó lắm, cho nên không thể nói đấy được.
Cocoons bob in boiling water as silk is rapidly teased out, spinning on reels skillfully operated by women in Vietnam's Co Chat village, where households have been making thread for more than a century. The village in Nam Dinh province, 2 hours south of the capital Hanoi, is nearing the end of silk production season. Dozens of workers, mostly women, in the bustling workshops stir the vats, gently unwinding the fiber from the cocoons through clouds of rising steam. Once the yellow and white fibers are spun onto wooden reels, workers hang them in the sun to dry.
Nguồn nguyên liệu không chuẩn thì máy cũng không thể nào làm được. Máy khua thủ công mình. Cho nên ở cái địa phương này tại sao mà từ xưa giờ toàn bộ làm bằng thủ công hết, vì cái hàng nào cái hàng đầu vào nó đẹp thì người ta làm tơ đẹp, hàng đầu vào xấu người ta làm tơ vừa xấu nữa này làm.
Around 30 kilograms of cocoons are processed by each worker every day, and the final threads are sold to traders exporting to Laos and Thailand, while a few households have invested in modern silk reeling machines. The majority choose to unwind the cocoons using chopsticks. even if it means sweating through the summer heat in stuffy workshops. Doing it manually makes it easier to salvage usable silk thread from cocoons even if they are not good. Each laborer earns around $10 a day. Worker Tran Thai Hien describes the work as precarious.
Nói chung là cái công việc cái nghề này là do từng năm lúc nó bấp bênh, vì cái năm được thì hàng giá nó lên thì được công, mà lúc giá mà không lên thì nói chung là mình chỉ có khi đủ ăn tiêu hàng năm thì con vậy thôi chứ không có để ra.
Silk was once considered extremely luxurious and thus available only to noble families. Now the fabric is widely used and beautiful silk products are affordably to anyone. They make great souvenirs. Despite challenges from modernization and global competition, Vietnamese silk remains a symbol of the country's rich cultural heritage and artisanal skill. The bee hummingbird, which is found only in Cuba, is an absolute miniature even among hummingbirds. It measures a mere 2¼ inch long. The wings of the world's smallest birds are an almost invisible blur as they was around tourists visiting Bernabe Hernandez's private garden in Cuba, transformed into a haven for a hummingbird found only on the island. In the southwestern town of Palpite, this 75-year-old Cuban has attracted the Zunzuncitos, as they're known locally, after planting a few trees. This small bird is listed as near-threatened by the International Union for Conservation of Nature, IUCN, which estimates its population at between 22,000 and 66,000 individuals. But in Palpite, in the southwest of the country, Bernabe Hernandez, 75, has turned his garden into a paradise for the bitty bird. Hernandez moved to the village of Palpite after the hurricane destroyed his home. The government gave him land to rebuild on the edge of the Ciénaga de Zapata, the largest wetland in the Caribbean. I moved here, but there were no birds, so I planted a panacea to provide shade and attract some birds. He did not know that the shrub's flowers were a delicacy for bee hummingbirds, who quickly flocked to his garden, which also boasts mango, guava, and avocado trees. Visitors hold up bird feeders to lure the tiny birds closer at the house of the hummingbirds.
Primeramente el ponací. Fue el primer árbol que yo sembré aquí cuando me mudé para que me le diera sombra a la casa y vinieran aves, porque yo sé que a las aves les gustaba mucho lo que es la semilla, la fruta del ponací. Pero un buen día llegó el zunzuncito, llegó el colibrí y se quedaron aquí en casa.
Cubans call them zunzuncito, a word evoking the sound of the buzzing of their tiny wings, which can flap up to 100 times a minute. The bee hummingbird's feathers have iridescent colors, which is not always noticeable, but depends on the viewing angle.
Se hicieron amigos míos y nos hicimos amigos y vienen a visitarme todos los días.
The bird's slender, pointed bill is adapted for probing deep into flowers. The bee hummingbird feeds mainly on nectar, by moving its tongue rapidly in and out of its mouth. In the process of feeding, the bird picks up pollen on its bill and head. When it flies from flower to flower, it transfers the pollen. In this way, it plays an important role in plant reproduction. In one day, the bee hummingbird may visit 1,500 flowers. It is a diurnal bird that can fly at 40 to 48 kilometers per hour, and it beats its wings 80 to 200 times per second, which allows it to remain stationary in the air to feed on flowers. The bee hummingbird lives up to 7 years in the wild and 10 years in captivity.
I will give you the signal, and then we will...
South Africa is home to a large majority of the world's rhinos and as such is a hotspot for poaching driven by demand from Asia, where horns are used in traditional medicine for their supposed therapeutic effect. South African scientists inject radioactive material into live rhino horns in a pioneering project aimed at curbing poaching. The idea is to devalue the rhino horn and to make it a lot easier to track going through borders and international crossings.
What I've done is I've just put in 2 tiny little radioactive chips into the horn. The idea is to devalue the rhino horn in the ASEAN user, to make it a lot easier to track going through borders, international crossings and things.
Rhino horns are highly sought after on black markets, where the price by weight rivals that of gold and cocaine.
Means we can detect these horns as they are.
We tried to poison the horns, that didn't work. Dehorning doesn't work. Nothing works. But this is something you can't destroy, you can't throw it away, and it petrifies people, you know. Oh, it's radioactive, so we gotta run. That's what we want.
In February, the Environment Ministry said that, despite government efforts to tackle the illicit trade, 499 of the giant mammals were killed in 2023, mostly in state-run parks. 20 live rhinos in total would be part of the pilot Rhizotope project, whereby they would be administered a dose strong enough to set off detectors that are installed globally at international border posts originally installed to prevent nuclear terrorism.
But the dosage is at a fairly low level, low enough that it will not impact on the animal itself in any negative way, but yet it is strong enough that it can do 2 things. One is to render the horn totally useless, not consumable by human beings. It's essentially poisonous for human consumption, for whatever needs people use this for. But also importantly, through the detection systems that we have at airports, any rhino that is being transported through our airports will be detected because of the radioactive.
About 15,000 rhinos live in the southern African nation, according to an estimate by the International Rhino Foundation. The team would then take follow-up blood samples to ensure the rhinos were effectively protected. The material would last 5 years on the horn, which was cheaper than dehorning every 18 months.
Rhinos, all the blood samples and things have been taken now at this preliminary time. We follow up again in 6 months. Final blood samples are taken, and then we can do all of the analyses that we need to show that these rhinos are going to be protected from now into the future.
Wildebeest, warthogs, and giraffe roamed the vast conservation area as more than a dozen team members performed the delicate process on another rhino.
The number of malicious and false statements spread by SMS or social media platforms have become too widespread. The public is advised to be careful and not fall for such ploys and sharing or forwarding such messages. Remember that spreading fake news is an offence under Section 233 of the Communications and Multimedia Act 1998. This carries the penalty of a fine not exceeding 50,000 ringgit or up to 1 year imprisonment or both upon conviction.
The Rajamari Ratnavati Girls' School uses the same yellow sandstone as the 12th century fort in nearby Jaisalmer, in India's western state of Rajasthan. Dubbed the Golden City due to the colour of the rock, like the fort, the school has thick rubble walls that help bounce back the heat, while the interior is plastered with lime, a porous material that regulates humidity and aids natural cooling, unlike the ancient fort. Its roof is lined with solar panels, which provide all the schools. Power in an area with frequent electricity cuts. Kellogg, the architect, said combining tradition with modern design and sustainable techniques was key.
इस बिल्डिंग की खासियत है कि ये गर्मी के टाइम में रूम ठंडे रहते हैं, क्योंकि बिल्डिंग की डिज़ाइन है ना वो पूरी ओवल शेप में बनाकर इसमें क्रॉस वेंटिलेशन है, क्लासरूम के अंदर लाइमस्टोन प्लास्टर है और टेरिस के ऊपर वाइट कलर की टाइल्स है। उसमें क्या है कि जो सनलाइट होती है वो रिफ्लेक्ट हो जाती है उसमें टकरा के।
In the sweltering heat of India's the desert, where summer highs soar above 50 degrees Celsius, an architecturally striking school is an oasis of cool thanks to a combination of age-old techniques and modern design. The school is supported by the US-based Sitter Education Foundation, meaning pupils attend for free in a state where the literacy rate for women is about 52%. Uniforms, school materials and lunch for pupils are also provided.
मुझे स्कूल जाना अच्छा लगता है, वहाँ पे मेरे दोस्त हैं, वहाँ पे खेलने की जगह है, हवा इसी की तरह आती।
Her oval design was inspired by feminine symbols of strength. The school's classrooms are arranged around an open elliptical courtyard resembling a Roman Colosseum, and walls with grids of vents create shade while allowing for cooling airflow. Elevated windows allow hot air to escape as it rises. Rainwater is harvested from the flat roof. In some places, the walls are dotted with perforations, a technique known as jali that was traditionally used for modesty, shielding women from view in the conservative society.
स्कूल बिल्कुल खुला है और उधर हवा बिल्कुल एसी की तरह लगता है। राजस्थान में अगर लाइट नहीं हो उसी दिन भी वहाँ बिल्कुल हवा बिल्कुल अच्छा लगता है और स्कूल खुले में आया हुआ वहाँ बच्चे पढ़ने के लिए भी इच्छुक है।
At the school, it is used to promote ventilation, creating a breeze channeled by the building's oval shape. The white tiles on the terrace reflect the sunlight. It is totally eco-friendly.
और इस बिल्डिंग की खासियत और भी है क्योंकि ये पूरा बिल्डिंग है दो इको फ्रेंडली बिल्डिंग है। पूरा बिल्डिंग है दो सोलर पैनल से चलती, ऊपर पूरा सोलर पैनल लगा उस पर चलती है और बीच में अपन जहाँ खड़े हैं यहाँ पर रेन वाटर हार्वेस्टिंग टैंक्स है।
It is airy and cool, and that is why the children enjoy going to school. India this year baked in its longest ever heat wave. According to government weather experts, temperatures surged above 50 degrees Celsius, 122 degrees Fahrenheit, with warnings people will face increasingly oppressive heat in the future.
सारे बहुत ही गरीब घरों की बच्चियां हैं जिन्हें घर में मतलब एक तरह से देखा जाए तो उन्हें घर में किसी तरह की सुविधाएं नहीं मिलती है, मतलब खाने को भी पूरा खाना नहीं मिलता है, पहनने को ढंग के कपड़े भी नहीं मिलते हैं और ऐसे में उन्हें इतनी अच्छी एजुकेशन देना तो बहुत बड़ी बात है।
Asawar Mustafa, a 22-year-old Sudanese refugee in Libya, is challenging gender stereotypes by working as a mechanic in the conservative city of Misrata. She inspects the engine and the oil before changing it for a customer, a regular at a garage in western Libya's Misrata, which offers services at women-only section. She is a Sudanese refugee woman in Libya. Inspecting oil filters where being a mechanic is considered a male role that hasn't deterred the 22-year-old whose main concern until recently was survival, having fled the war in Sudan with her family and abandoned her last year of studies in pharmacy. Her success is bolstered by the support of her younger brother and the shop owner, who believe that mechanics shouldn't be a male-only field. Mustafa's story is a powerful example of breaking barriers and redefining gender roles.
والله كانت في البداية تجربة صعبة شوية، يعني مثلا يمكن يكون انت درتي شيء غلط او عملتي شيء غلط ولا كده، فبعدين لما شفت النتيجة الحمد لله يعني بقى الموضوع حماس شوية.
Initially afraid of making mistakes and damaging cars, Asawar grew passionate about mechanics despite facing misogyny. In Libya, she faced doubts and societal pressure but persevered, eventually becoming confident in her abilities.
يعني ما فيش شيء صعب هيك، لكن برضو كتجربة كأول مرة حاجة إني مثلا نعملها هيك يعني كانت مثلا احتمال يكون في أخطاء، احتمال ممكن تخرب سيارة المرة هذه وهيك، لكن الحمد لله يعني كان عندي يعني ثقة في نفسي كافية كون إنه لا عادي ممكن أحابد الخطوة دي وعادي أمشي في الخطوة دي.
People often told her that her place was at home or in the kitchen, but she remained determined to pursue her goal. However, she had enough confidence to take the leap and start working in the field. Despite the challenges, she believed there was nothing inherently difficult about the job once she gained experience. Asean welcomes female drivers who appreciate the comfort of dealing with a female mechanic in a society where many women feel intimidated by male-dominated spaces.
فعلا ايه كونهم اليوم النساء جايين سعيدات كونوا قادرين يعني يتعاملوا مع مرة زيهم هيك، يعني ما فيش حواجز، قادرين ياخذوا راحتهم التامة. فانت كمرأة عندك اي هدف في راسك ما في حاجة يعني مختصة بس بالرجال، عادي تعمليها طوالي ما دام عندك اصلا الهدف والرغبة فيها.
Her journey was not easy as she fled war-torn Sudan and endured a difficult journey to Libya. Despite these hardships, she believes that no job is exclusive to men and encourages other women to pursue their desires without hesitation.
احنا في ليبيا تحسها كثرة سواقة المرأة، يعني حتى تاخذ راحتها وحتى هي تطمن بأن المكان هدايا فيه سيدات وتتعامل معها يعني.
Each day, Asean, wearing a white scarf and black blouse, welcomes a number of female drivers from Misrata, a large port city about 200 kilometers east of Tripoli. Women in Libya begin driving. They find comfort and reassurance in visiting a place where they can interact with female mechanics. This environment helps them feel more at ease and supported.
يعني أنا شجعتها من ناحية إنه كل مرة بجيها بقول لها إنه لو احتجت أي حاجة في الناحية دي فأنا معك إن شاء الله. وشوف اللي أنت تقدر عليه وإضافات، مرات بتحتاج إنه إضافات مسألة إنه كيف أعمل كده وكيف أعمل كده ورأيك شنو في الموضوع. فأنا قلت لها موضوع فكرة كويسة كونك تخوضي تجارب جديدة وأنا معك في أي حاجة تشوفيها.
At the repair shop, the encouragement of her 19-year-old brother, Sahabi, has been a lifeline, supported by her brother and her employer, who is committed to diversifying services for women. Asean has become a symbol of resilience and determination in Libya.
بالنسبة لي عندي تغيير جيوت وعندي غسيل سيارات إن النساء يخدمن، ونفس الوقت نتمنى إنه هو خدمة صالة وباطنيات وتكييف وقصدي مش كل شيء راه خلونا إنه هو حكر على الرجال. قصدي تقدر المرأة أن هي تخش في هذا المجال ده وتقدر هي تنظم أمورها وقصدي خلاص يعني الوقت الحالي ده ما عادش شيء قصدي إنه هو للرجال فقط يعني.
Shagib said the services offered to female clients should be diversified and conducted by more women. The profession must not remain reserved for men. According to the World Bank, the proportion of women in the labor force in Libya reached 37% in 2022. There are other garages in Libya that offer a section for female drivers, but Shagib said his is the first to provide services by a woman.